Towards the beginning of the One Piece story, we're told that the One Piece world has three great powers, and that the balance between them is what allows for world peace to be maintained. Those three powers are Marine Headquarters, Yonko, and 7 Warlords of the Sea, and just like pretty much everything in the One Piece story, all three of these things have evolved as the story has gone on. The members of the Yonko have changed, as the original Yonko were Big Mom, Kaido, Whitebeard, and Shanks. Blackbeard then took Whitebeard's spot after the Marineford War and the time skip, where Blackbeard killed Whitebeard and then beat the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates about a year into the time skip. Then, after Big Mom and Kaido were defeated by the Straw Hats in their alliance, Luffy and Buggy took their spot, and now Shanks is the only member of the original Yonko that's still there. When it comes to the 7 Warlords of the Sea, Luffy was defeating members of them back to back before the time skip, and as of the Reverie, they don't exist anymore. That's because they were replaced by the final major weapon that Vegapunk created for the world government, the Seraphims. The Seraphim are a special type of pacifista units developed by the Marine Special Science Group with the intention of replacing the 7 Warlords of the Sea. They're living weapons built as clones of the former members of the Warlords, mixed with King's Lunarian lineage factor, and augmented with the Devil Fruit power replicating green blood. These guys are really cool and could definitely get a video of their own one day, but the 7 Warlords of the Sea were disbanded once they were created. And finally, we've got the Marine Headquarters, which is the main division of the Marine organization that has jurisdiction over the Grand Line. It's where the elite of the elite Marines are stationed, and that includes the Rear Admirals, Vice Admirals, and Admirals. It's also where the Fleet Admiral resides, and I also might be making some videos about the Marines that rank higher than the Admirals in the future as well. Today, we're here to talk about all the people that we've seen hold an Admiral title in the story so far, as there are some pretty absurd characters that have held that rank. One of the craziest things about the Admirals, in my opinion, is the fact that the first one that we met isn't even with the Navy anymore, and that guy's name is Aokiji. He's also known as Kuzan, and was once an Admiral of the Navy that was actually trained by the hero of the Navy, Monkey D. Garp. During the time skip, he was even nominated for the Fleet Admiral position by the former Fleet Admiral Sengoku, but once he lost a battle for the position against Akainu, he resigned from the Navy instead of returning to his position as a normal admiral. After he left the Marines, he then ended up joining the Blackbeard Pirates and became one of the 10 Titanic captains, currently serving as the captain of the 10th ship of the fleet. Aokiji has been a really interesting character ever since he was introduced during the Long Ring Long Land arc, and a lot of that has to do with his past. We already know that he was trained by Garp, but he was also around for one of the most infamous disasters in the history of the One Piece world, the annihilation of Ohara. When Ohara was getting destroyed, Kuzan was one of the 5 Vice Admirals that took part in the buster call that was called on the island. This would have made him connected to Robin no matter what, but he was particularly distraught when Akainu destroyed a ship with innocent civilians on it, just because there was a chance that Robin was on the ship as well. This made it so even though he froze Saul and didn't let him escape, he did give Robin a way to get away, explaining why she was so scared when she saw Aokiji at the current day. Aokiji is also a really interesting first admiral for us to meet, mainly because he's so laid back, showing no shock or surprise for almost anything. His lack of interest and lazy justice often leads to others believing that he can't possibly be a Marine of such high ranking, which causes them to underestimate him, making him all the more dangerous. With that being said, he can't be all that lazy, because we've seen multiple times how hard he used to train when under Garp, going with his master to punch ships all day long in order to get stronger. Aokiji is also a compassionate man, helping Tonjit at Long Ring Long Land to cross the ocean with his ability, and even letting Robin escape the buster call on Ohara, even sabotaging the Navy ships that were about to go after her. Despite being a Marine, this compassion can even extend to pirates as long as their actions are mostly benevolent. He chose to not arrest or kill Luffy because the young pirate had defeated Crocodile beforehand, thus saving Alabasta from the latter's malevolence. He also hates his former admiral colleague Akainu because of the way that he's disgusted by his brutal actions when dealing with with situations, and he thinks he's a fool. He also appears during the strangest times, other than his participation in the Marineford War, and him showing up during the celebration at the end of the Eni's lobby arc actually scared me the first time I watched the series. I thought that he was gonna try to take her in after the Straw Hats worked so hard to get her back, but he's just happy that she's found a place where she truly belongs, still reminding her that he's out there to stop her if she does anything wrong. Kuzan is also one of the coolest characters in the entire series, no pun intended, and you just know that some crazy shit is about to go down whenever you see him. He's also got a really broken Logia Devil Fruit that allows him to create, control, and transform into ice at will, but I've already talked about his Devil Fruit in a previous video that'll be linked in the description. Kuzan being a member of the Blackbeard Pirates also makes his role in the final saga really interesting, and the community has had theories about him being a double agent ever since his new role was revealed. In his most recent appearance, he also had an extremely emotional fight against his mentor Garp, where Aokiji actually ended as the victor. He may have won the fight, but Garp was able to get Kobe off of Hachinosu like he wanted to, and Garp is even still alive, even though he's currently in the clutches of the Blackbeard Pirates. Something tells me that the two of them could definitely team up again in some way during the final war, especially with the way that Garp is still strong because of his old age, but only time will tell. Each admiral has a form of justice that they're known for as well, and as I've already mentioned, Aokiji's is lazy justice. When it comes to lazy justice, Kuzan believes that justice is seldom worth pursuing and should only be enforced with little effort. This can be seen reflected in his apathetic attitude and unwillingness to act, and his motto used to be burning justice, but he came to change his views following the events of Ohara. The events of Ohara really changed the way that Aokiji thought about the world, and I think that that's a big reason as to why he left the Marines after he lost his fight against Akainu. Every character that's been an admiral in the story so far is going to play a huge role in this final saga, but Aokiji is extra interesting to me because of the ways that he switched his alliance as the story has gone on. Now we've only got 4 admirals left to talk about for this video, and the next one that we're going to be talking about is Kizaru. Kizaru is also known as Borsalino, and after Kuzan resigned from the Marines and Akainu was promoted to Fleet Admiral, Kizaru is the only remaining admiral from the previous trio. He first appeared in the Saboti Archipelago arc, and he was a one-man wrecking crew when he first appeared, defeating pretty much anybody that he wanted to with relative ease. The only person that was able to do anything against him was Rayleigh, and this guy was the right-hand man of the King of the Pirates, no matter how old he currently is. Unlike Aokiji, we haven't seen Kizaru in that many arcs, but each time he makes an appearance, he leaves an impact. During Marineford, he played just as big a role as his other admirals that aren't named Akainu, and I believe that that arc does a really great job of making the Navy seem like a true threat. He then appeared again around the events of the Wano arc, asking Akainu if he should go deal with the samurai of Wano, but Akainu told him to stay out of it, so he didn't end up going. He also talked about the 7 Warlords of the Sea during the Zou arc, and worried about the Charlo situation that happened at Reverie, but he didn't really play a role post-time skip until the Egghead Island arc. This was the arc where we learned more about his past, but we also learned a little bit about his Vice Admiral days during the Fishman Island arc. The timeline gets a little weird because some of the events with Vegapunk happened before his Vice Admiral days, and some happened after them, so I'm gonna try my best to talk about them in order here. So, about 26 years ago, Kizaru was placed on a mission to arrest the scientist Vegapunk. Upon introducing himself to Vegapunk, the scientist asked the sailor how much the Marines would pay for his research funds, and promptly brushed off the pretense of his arrest as merely an excuse for the Marines to have access to his knowledge. This is what made the relationship between the world government and Vegapunk that he had all the way up until the Egghead Island arc, and he did some really great things for them. It was also around this time that Kizaru and Vegapunk came upon a village during one of their trips, where they discovered a young Sentomaru who had just beaten up some bears that were terrorizing the villagers. It was after this that Kizaru took him to train to be Vegapunk's bodyguard, and that's why the 3 of them were so connected during the Egghead Island arc. It was after this time that Kizaru was a Vice Admiral, where he easily defeated an Arlong who was trying to avenge Fisher Tiger after Fool Shout Island sold him out. I did not expect to see Kizaru in this arc, but it's his shock in finding out that Fisher Tiger is dead, and the stuff that happened on Egghead Island that might be changing his character moving forward. Speaking of Egghead, Kizaru was around when it was first built around 4 years ago while he was already an admiral, and that's when all the stuff with Kuma and Bonnie happened. Even though he was upset about the fact that Kuma needed to be turned into a weapon in order for Bonnie to be cured, he still allowed it to happen because that was his job. Kizaru is easily one of the most interesting characters during the Egghead Island incident as well, because it's clear the entire time that he's really conflicted about his role in the grand scheme of things. This made his character much more than the really strong light man, and I think it did wonders for his character, especially his outburst towards Akainu at the end. Kizaru was a threat the entire arc, immediately engaging Luffy in battle, and making it clear that he had a mission to kill Vegapunk. The entire time that he's on the island though, it seems like he has more on his mind, making his mission harder, and the fact that Luffy's actually strong now doesn't make things any easier. With that being said, he does end up mortally wounding Vegapunk with one of his light attacks, and once his job is done, Luffy sends him flying into a ship where he stays until the end of the arc. Once Luffy caused Kizaru to fly into a marine ship, some nearby marines asked him about his wounds, and he said that they ran deep and just asked to be left alone. The Egghead Island arc makes Kizaru an even more likable character than he already was, and I can't wait to see his next interaction with Akainu after he told him off so strongly. The justice motto that Kizaru follows is called unclear justice, and it's another brand of justice that fits perfectly with his character. As the name implies, Kizaru's justice appears to be rather ambiguous and constantly in flux, showing aspects found in both the lazy justice and absolute justice doctrines. This can be seen in his carefree attitude and fickle priorities, coupled with his surprising efficiency and ruthlessness when dealing with criminals. Kizaru is another character to hold the Admiral rank that make the group of characters really interesting, and I can't wait to see him in the story again. And for the last member of the original Admiral trio, we've got the current Fleet Admiral of the Navy, Akainu. He's also known as Sakazuki, and upon becoming the Fleet Admiral, one of his first decisions was to relocate Marine headquarters into the New World in preparation for the new pirate age. This guy is known for his ruthlessness in holding up his motto of justice, as this guy is a very strict follower of absolute justice. Now for Aokiji and Kizaru, I talked about their justice mottos at the end, but absolute justice is so important for Akainu's character that I think I need to talk about it here. With absolute justice, Sakazuki believes that even the possibility of evil existing must be eradicated down to its roots, regardless if there was any real threat to begin with. This was apparent in his decision to destroy the evacuation ship at Ohara based on the mere chance that one of their targets may be using the ship to escape. This appears to be one of the most extreme forms of absolute justice, as it can lead to the death of several innocents without necessarily punishing the guilty. There are a ton of examples of this even during the Marineford War, as he used any tactic to win, including lying to Squard about Whitebeard's feelings about him, and rage baiting Ace into a fight with him while he was about to get away. He was even about to kill Kobe because he actually made a good point about the continuation of the war causing more needless deaths, but in Akainu's eyes, the possibility of evil hadn't been taken out, so the war must continue. Akainu is just generally a pretty scary dude, and even though the only thing he's really done since the time skip is sit behind his desk, I am scared for a time where he isn't behind it. His hatred of anything evil also drips down to the Celestial Dragons, because even though he does acknowledge them as his bosses, he definitely doesn't agree with everything that they do or stand for. This was especially prevalent in an argument that he had with the Gorosei when he was informed that the report given to Marine headquarters about Doflamingo's resignation from the Seven Warlords of the Sea was fraudulent. He argued with them himself and criticized them about how much work they issued, all because of Doflamingo. Sakazuki even insulted, provoked, and mocked them, stating that they had been walked over by the Celestial Dragon's puppets, testing his limits and showing them that he doesn't agree with everything that they do. The Celestial Dragon's puppets that he's referring to is CP0, and he doesn't seem to like CP0 either, and definitely doesn't like Lucci, as he gave his soldiers direct orders to stop him from engaging in battle with Luffy during Egghead Island. Akainu's power is also undeniable, because even though he got some scars from his battle with Aokiji, he also took one of Aokiji's legs with him, which Aokiji now needs to replicate with ice at all times in order to walk. The battle between Akainu and Aokiji is truly the stuff of legends when it comes to the One Piece story, and I really hope that we get to see more about it in the future, just like the battle between the Blackbeard pirates and the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates. It's also impossible to talk about Akainu without talking about his hatred for the brother duo of Luffy and Ace. Now, given Akainu's sense of justice, it only makes sense that he hates both Ace and Luffy, especially since they're heavily connected to two people that he would only ever see as evil. When it comes to Ace, Akainu saw him as one of the two most dangerous individuals in the world, solely due to the fact that his father was Gol D. Roger. Despite the fact that he knew nothing about Ace and how he felt about his father, Akainu wanted him gone because he sees the former king of the pirates as one of the biggest threats of all time. I also just said that he saw Ace as one of the two most dangerous individuals in the world, and the other that holds the same title is Luffy himself. This stems from the fact that Luffy is Dragon's son, as he sees the leader of the Revolutionary Army as the world's worst criminal in the eyes of the world government, and the two might share a past since they're both the same age and Dragon used to be a Marine. Getting back to Luffy, however, because Dragon is his father, Akainu wants to get rid of him and possesses an immensely dangerous obsession with ending his life. This is shown through the way that he pursues Luffy after his mental breakdown after the death of Ace, as he literally ignored all of the other threats surrounding him and focused solely on taking Luffy's life. He tried so hard, in fact, that he gave Luffy his iconic X-shaped scar by shooting an attack through Jinbei's body and into Luffy's chest. Luffy also knows his connection to Akainu not only because of what he did to Ace, but also because of what he did to him, so their first interaction post-time skip is gonna be golden. Akainu truly strikes me as an endgame villain, because while admirals like Aokiji, Kizaru, and Fujitora are definitely admirals that could switch sides during the final war, I could never see Akainu doing that. Speaking of Fujitora, he's the next admiral that we need to talk about, and I think that this guy might just be my favorite admiral. Fujitora is also known as Isho, and he was once the captain of a guard force in the former Oi Kingdom. That was before he was conscripted through a world military draft during the 2-year time skip, and was appointed to fill one of the admiral vacancies alongside his co-worker Greenbull. Greenbull is obviously the last admiral that we'll be discussing in this video, but Fujitora himself first appears during the Dressrosa arc. This actually makes him the first admiral to have a physical appearance in the post-time skip material, and he was also the person that spearheaded the campaign for the abolishment of the 7 Warlords of the Sea system. The craziest thing about Fujitora is that he reached the title of admiral, but he's actually a blind man that only has the whites of his eyes showing, though he usually keeps both of them closed. He has an X-shaped scar centered on the left side of his forehead that stretches over both eyes, which is actually self-inflicted due to his decision to blind himself. He decided to blind himself because he couldn't stand to even look at the evil of the world anymore, and even says during the Dressrosa arc that not having sight is a blessing. He's really an admiral for the people, something that the highest ranking members of the Navy somehow lack most of the time, as he even tells his subordinates that it's more important to take into account the number of lives to protect rather than the numbers of enemies against them. He takes care to never put innocent civilians in harm's way during conflict, and will try to avoid causing collateral damage with his attacks. And in the event that he does cause collateral damage with his attacks, he makes sure to compensate the owner of the involved property. Fujitora's desire to eliminate evil also extends to rooting out corruption within the Marines and world government, and it was actually the events of Alabasta that made him question the 7 Warlords of the Sea and wonder if they're really something that's needed to check the power of other pirates and criminals. He's just the most based admiral by far in my opinion, and he also gets into arguments with Akainu all the time because of the different ways that they go about upholding justice. Like when Fujitora went to the people of Dressrosa after the Dressrosa arc, got on his hands and knees, and apologized for everything that Doflamingo had done on behalf of the entire Navy. It was the right thing to do in my opinion, since it was the Navy's Warlord of the Sea that caused them all that strife, but this caused Fujitora to get into an argument with Akainu, and ended in Akainu banning Fujitora from stepping foot on a naval base until he captured both Luffy and Law. With that being said, he even disobeyed that order by finding a loophole, and that's why he was in Meridua when the Revolutionary Army invaded during the Reverie. Him being there also made things interesting, because while he did his job and fought the Revolutionary Army, he also freed some of the Celestial Dragon's slaves, which has to be seen as an executable offense to most of them. With that being said, Fujitora definitely doesn't care about that, isn't afraid of the Celestial Dragons, and even tried to summon a meteor during that battle before Greenbull stopped him. Fujitora's gravity powers are also cool as hell, and there has to be a deeper reason as to why he's the only admiral that doesn't have a Logia fruit. I also believe that his fight and words about Luffy at the end of the Dressrosa arc are some of the best things that we've gotten in the post-time skip material. Firstly, Luffy going straight at an admiral to show that things are different now was pretty insane, but so were his actions during the fight. This is because he was literally telling Fujitora what he was about to do because of the fact that he's blind, and he wanted the fight to be fair. Mind you, this guy is an admiral in the Navy, so he's definitely strong enough to contend with Dressrosa Luffy, even though he is blind. It's pretty clear to me and most people that Fujitora has some of the strongest observation haki in the entire verse, and that honestly allows him to see even though he's physically blind. This leads to the funny moments in their fight, but it also leads to the moment where Fujitora regrets blinding himself solely because of the fact that he wants to know what Luffy looks like. Fujitora smiling while saying that he bets Luffy looks kind is weirdly wholesome in a way, and it's this moment that cements that Fujitora is truly different. Just like our other admirals, Fujitora also follows a justice motto, and his is humane justice. This form of justice tends to prioritize the protection of innocent people over the pursuit of criminals, though Fujitora still does both. This justice is fitting for Fujitora's moral ideals, caring for innocence and opposing corruption in the government. Fujitora is another character in this video that makes me excited every time I see him, and the way that he's different from the other admirals actually makes what he's gonna do kind of unpredictable. And for the final admiral and character that we need to talk about in this video, we've got the guy who became an admiral at the same time as Fujitora, Greenbull. Greenbull is also known as Aramaki, and he was formerly a policeman in the Taya Kingdom before he was chosen to be an admiral in the World Military Draft. There is something a little strange about the Navy not just promoting 2 vice admirals to fill the vacant spots, but it meant that we got 2 new cool characters, so I guess I can't complain too much. This guy is actually the admiral that we know the least about, as we didn't even get to see what this guy looks like until the end of the Wano arc. He did make an appearance during the Reverie arc alongside Fujitora, but he was literally just a silhouette, and that only made the intrigue towards his character more powerful. He seems to actually be buddies with Fujitora, which is pretty insane in the grand scheme of things, as Greenbull is known as an even stricter follower of absolute justice than Akainu. He admires Akainu and his justice so much, in fact, that in order to gain Akainu's approval, Greenbull's following of the motto borders on totalitarian fanaticism. When Greenbull first went to Wano, Akainu appeared to be very displeased and exasperated at the admiral going missing and giving vague answers about his location, though upon learning of Greenbull's destination, he was seemingly resigned to the fact that his subordinate would go there no matter what, and simply ordered him not to do anything unnecessary. So it seems like he's got Akainu's trust at least, but he's definitely gonna have to tone it back a little bit if he wants the approval from his fleet admiral that he's been seeking. Greenbull is also kind of hilarious because as the last of the admirals to be revealed, the community really built up a lot of hype behind him and how strong he could potentially be. And that strength was definitely there when he first appeared, as he stormed into the prisoner mine where the remnants of Kaido's crew were hiding out and defeated them with ease. Now that might not sound too insane, but King and Queen were there too, and he just left everybody there impaled on tree branches as he set off to go to try to kill Luffy. I don't personally believe that he would have been successful in that endeavor, but we never got to see that fight because the protectors of Wano all pulled up to fight him instead. Now this fight was really interesting because it was clear that Greenbull was in control until Yamato pulled up and really surprised him because of the fact that she's Kaido's son and has the ability to use Conqueror's Haki. With that being said, he was still very much in this fight as he even defeated some of the red scabbards, completely dehydrating Raizo in the process. It even seemed like things were gonna get more serious, as even Momonosuke ended up showing up and hit Greenbull with a blast breath that he regenerated from because of his Logia powers. After that, Greenbull announced that it was time to get serious, but what happens next is so crazy that I'm gonna read the events from the One Piece fandom verbatim. Greenbull announced that things were about to get serious, though before he could do anything, he got paralyzed by the sudden hockey blast from Shanks on a ship miles away. Shanks then telepathically spoke to Greenbull through his hockey and warned him to leave this new era of pirates alone. Greenbull, not wanting to fight Shanks and his crew, begrudgingly adhered to his warning and retreated. This was an insane moment for anybody reading chapter 1055 when it dropped, and even though it makes complete sense as to why Greenbull wouldn't want to fight a Yonko crew all by himself, some of the narratives created by this moment have stuck to his character to this day. People have been calling Greenbull a coward left and right, and saying that Admiral stocks are in the mud because of him, and I can't lie, some of the memes about this moment are pretty funny. There's a whole subset of the community that loves to push agendas and coined the term agenda piece, and I'd love to make a video about that one day, but it's kinda hard to know where to start, and I know that a video like that has the possibility to make a lot of people angry. The thing with this is that not only does Greenbull now know that Shanks is in the waters around Wano now, he also knows that Luffy is on Wano, so if he were to stay and fight, he would have to face two Yonko crews at the same time. We literally just watched an entire arc where an alliance of a shit ton of different forces were barely capable of doing that, and some people wanted Greenbull to try to do it all by himself. With that being said, he was talking pretty crazy to the protectors of Wano before feeling that hockey blast, so maybe he actually does deserve all of the slander that's been thrown his way. This also wasn't the last time that we saw Greenbull, as he was also present when Weevil was defeated and arrested, going to help once another Marine called in for backup. So he definitely isn't done trying to fight the pirate threat, even though Shanks made him piss down his leg, but there's no way that somebody could become a Navy Admiral if they gave up that easily. He's also not afraid to fight against his fellow Admirals if he needs to, and loves the idea of the Celestial Dragons having slaves, as him and Fujitora got into a fight because of the fact that Fujitora saved some. I never said that this guy was a likable character, but at least he stands on what he believes in, even if what he believes in is truly deplorable. And with that, we've talked about all the characters that we've seen in the One Piece story so far that have held the Admiral title. Now, I am aware of this Z character that appeared in one of the movies, but I'm just gonna assume that he's non-canon until he's either mentioned or shown in the manga. And don't you worry, because even though there's a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to canon One Piece, I'll definitely be making some videos about the filler in the future, because the shit that goes down there is absolutely insane. With that being said, I do think that I'm done talking about the One Piece Admirals for now, so I think it's time to end things here. Please join me next time for whatever I post next. Please leave a like and maybe subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.